Okay, so without further ado, let me once again thank you so much for attending CoachHub webinar. Today's session will be Office of the Future, HR as the Modern Workplace Transformer. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our first presenter. She is an international keynote speaker, best-selling author, and thought leader on leadership, HR, AI, and digital transformation. She has been ranked top 100 HR influential, including top 75 remote work influential. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to all of you, Bridget Eisen. Bridget, over to you.
Thank you for having me. I am very excited to be presenting to you at this webinar. So what does HR even mean in today's ever-changing business and people landscape? So much disruption is taking place around us. Fast-moving technological advances, remote work and hybrid work, outsourcing and automation of HR functions, COVID-19 ravages on, and the competition for top talent continues to be a challenge. How do we remain relevant and valuable in this new era? Activity. I would like to ask you, could you write for me, what is your job? Take a few seconds and write, what is your job? So I will come back to this later in the presentation. So I would like you to record your answers in chat. I will ask you later on, and if you could write your answers for me, please. As the workforce changes, we must continue to find new ways to achieve business results. HR of the future requires much more than simply being a paper processing unit or receptacle for employee complaints. It's about repositioning ourselves as a strategic partner in the business. We need to contribute to the vision, mission, and financial success of the business. Otherwise, we won't be taken seriously by leadership. Many organizations are continuing to do what they have always done. Like what? Well, for example, one-size-fits-all training programs, performance review and recognition programs that fail to inspire or provide any connection to business strategy. The role of HR in today's workforce is increasingly a strategic one, working hand in hand with management to influence and direct employee engagement, company culture, and major company changes. Staying relevant requires weaving automation and technology more naturally into the way people work, from collaboration tools to better work to AI that helps people make more informed decisions. Thoughtful use of technology can change the nature of work so people can focus on their professional development. There must be a delicate balance between data and intuition. For example, applicant tracking system, or ATS, can be incredibly helpful for HR recruitment, as it significantly reduces the manual workload and cuts down both administrative and personnel related costs. However, algorithms cannot read between the lines or sense passion, loyalty, and drive. AI can be used to pre-select candidates for a role, but determining who will be the best fit ultimately comes down to a human-to-human interaction. The new challenge in the digital age is determining how to use the data in tandem with the human element. We will continue to be asked to balance these two elements in our daily work and to look deeper to make good decisions and form meaningful connections. Remember, the automation process is supposed to be a help, not a replacement for human reasoning. Thirdly, making evidence-based decisions. With sophisticated HR software at our disposal, we have plenty of data and analytics at our fingertips to make better informed decisions. Embracing technology doesn't mean taking humans out of the equation. In fact, we will have more time to focus on individuals, enhancing recruitment culture and retention. And fourthly, how do we remain relevant? How do we remain relevant and valuable? The need to focus on the human in HR. Many employees believe that the foremost role that HR plays is protecting the organization against the employees. It is no surprise that many organizations are struggling to elicit trust from their workforce. Thus, HR needs to rebrand itself and infuse humanity in all our roles. We need to consciously make transactions more humane and drive recruitment, learning, culture, and leadership through the lens of humanity. The scale and magnitude of disruption that the workforce is experiencing calls for specialized focus on employee experience. This takes empathy. I saw a viral post on LinkedIn where someone shared a family picture with her husband and 2 kids in it. And she said she lost her husband 2 weeks ago. He had committed suicide. And the worst part, she said, was her husband gives so much of his life to his job, and no one in management in the company called her to ask how she or the kids were doing and if they needed anything. They only called to get back the company laptop. Many of those in the comments were asking for the name of that company. Training managers to be more mindful and show more empathy and understanding is a must. What role does empathy play in leadership? Empathy allows leaders to build and develop relationships with those we lead. Empathy is required to improve employee experience. Empathy in the workplace is positively related to job performance. Most importantly, empathy benefits the bottom line, and this is what we all want. Do you want employees to feel you treated them with respect, compassion, and above all, empathy? As one famous quote by Theodore Roosevelt states, "Nobody cares how much you know until they know how much you care." Empathy needs to be embedded in the fabric of our culture. Show that you care. It's about respecting employees and their experiences. Are we aware of the people around us and the things that are dear to them? Are we aware of the things that bother them? Or are we too focused on the numbers? If you know someone is facing a hard time, whether personally or professionally, you don't have to pry. Just let them know you are here for them. And if they need anything, you are there. Sometimes it's the little things we do that counts the most. It's the simple things people remember. The thoughtful gesture, the kind word, the much needed support. It doesn't cost much to show employees you genuinely care, but it can make the biggest difference in keeping them loyal, happy, and engaged. Empathy and this skill go hand in hand. What skill is that? Empathy and this skill go hand in hand. Listening. Listening is an underrated HR skill. Listening is crucial to gaining a complete understanding of situations. Without this full understanding, one can easily waste everyone's time by solving the wrong problem or merely addressing a symptom, not the root cause. Poor communication comes with a high price tag. It accounts for businesses losing millions of dollars each year. This happens far too often in our corporate world. Someone says they need to speak to you, and you say, sure, yes, but you don't even bother to look up. You keep your eyes down on your computer or the report. As Peter Drucker stated, The most important thing in communication is hearing what isn't said. HR professionals must be good listeners. Think about all the things we do where being a good listener makes or breaks a situation. We interact with a great number of people on a daily basis, from handling employee relations, interviewing, hiring, training, payroll, and benefits, formulating policies and procedures, among few other responsibilities. Good listening is an active process. It is not just being quiet until the other person stops talking so you can respond. Interact with the speaker. Summarize what's being said and ask questions. Make sure that good listening techniques are a part of training at all levels of management so your employees can feel respected, heard, and valued. What is your speaking to listening ratio? My assignment for you, let's begin this week. Make an effort to listen more than you speak. I want to go through the answers to the listening questionnaire I had sent out. Did everybody complete their homework? Right, so I'm just going to go through the answers. If you didn't get a copy, I'm sure one will be sent to you, so you can just record this. 27 plus, you have very good listening skills. 22 to 26, you are above average as a listener, but there is room for improvement. 18 to 21, good, but lots of room for improvement. 17 or less, you have some way to go, but keep working on it and you will become a better listener. Even if you scored high on the listening questionnaire, don't get too comfortable with the results and think, I don't need this. This is something you will have to keep working on because there will be so much factors competing for your attention on a daily basis. People will show you what they're thinking and feeling. Your job is to listen and respond in ways that address their concerns. Incorporating these strategies will help your role to remain relevant and valuable in this new era. How HR is reimagining the office of the future. How are we doing this? The workplace of the future calls for unprecedented changes. This means holistic design, a more flexible environment, and flexible work schedules. Employees want the basics first: a high-quality workplace, air quality and good ventilation, access to natural light, comfortable temperatures, and the ability to personalize their workspace. These are often overlooked, yet they have a great influence on employee well-being, productivity, happiness, and the overall quality of the employee experience. Employers should use this time to gather information on employees' experience of working from home to inform their decisions about the purpose of the future office. Many employees welcome a hybrid system, so the physical workspace will not become obsolete. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought into focus the importance of office design in ensuring the physical well-being of employees. Buildings will need to be appealing and foster interaction and collaboration, while still factoring in the potential for social distancing and COVID-19 health concerns. We can expect that the future workplace will develop as an ecosystem of office space. Some organizations are adopting the hub and spoke model. This model enables a centralized hub for people to come together while also providing the choice to work from spokes, home offices, and virtual spaces. With office designs that focus on agile workplaces, current technologies and green buildings, employers form a more sustainable, comfortable, and resilient work environment. I have good news and bad news. Which one would you like to hear first? The bad news? Managers have a major impact on their team success, accounting for 70% of differences in employee engagement. So bad management leads to poor outcomes. The good news: managers have a major impact on their team's success. So great managers help their teams achieve great things. The biggest challenge to successful hybrid team leadership, however, is ineffective leaders. According to Gartner, 78% of HR leaders identified leaders' mindsets as a greater challenge than their skill sets in driving the success of a hybrid workforce model. Activity. I want you to think of a leader that made a positive impact in your life, current or past. What skills did they possess? So if you can please put your comments in the chat, I'll be checking out the chat at the moment. What skills did they possess? A leader, current or past? Just type your responses in the chat for me, please. What skills did they possess? Inspirational, genuine care and interest in you as a person. Caring and listening, empathy. Empathy again. Thank you for those responses. Wow. No one said technical skills or intelligence. I'm surprised. Not. It's soft skills that make the difference. The human touch makes managers better leaders. Does leadership in the new hybrid technology-driven age require different skills that go beyond traditional leadership? Firstly, leaders' hard skills will continue to be surpassed by AI and smart technology, while their soft skills will become ever more important. Having a hybrid workforce is about more than just where employees work. As more and more employees complain about being micromanaged, managers need to be trained to support hybrid teams and enable performance. Driving performance requires being clear on expectations, delegating projects or tasks to teams or employees, agreeing on check-in points to evaluate how the work is going, clearly outlining deadlines, constantly developing a culture of accountability. As the digital revolution in the workplace continues, it's imperative we look at work and its settings holistically. It's a time of profound change in how design supports work. It's more about building a collaborative, innovation-driven community. Office spaces need to model this. So how do we build an innovative mindset? One of the things as HR leaders we should do is carve time and space out where people can brainstorm, problem solve, or step back and reflect on what's working or what's not working. Some companies have hackathon sessions, innovation days. Others have weekly brainstorming sessions where out-of-the-box concepts are explored. It's allotting time for staff to work on projects and develop and test new ideas. Employees are as creative as you allow them to be. Carving out space to learn, to grow, to share is absolutely mission critical to innovation and creativity. If you are doing it right, innovation can be woven throughout your everyday business. Do you have a process for innovation? How many of your employees can describe it? Let's move on to the strategic priorities for the future of HR. The pandemic has led to a massive shift in strategic priorities in the workplace. Some of these include attracting and retaining top talents, employee well-being, mental health, diversity, equity, and inclusion, leadership development, learning, transformation, reskilling and upskilling, managing remote workers, digital culture, and psychological safety. But today I want to focus on 4 areas. And these areas include preparing for the new workforce, diversity, equity and inclusion, reskilling and upskilling, and psychological safety. How many of you have heard about the Great Resignation? It's the ongoing trend of employees voluntarily leaving their jobs from spring 2021 to the present, largely in the United States, but it also has been taking place internationally as well. The exodus of workers has created hiring challenges for companies and left millions of jobs unfilled. So 1, preparing for the new workforce, attracting and retaining top talent. Today's most talented professionals have their choice, with companies fighting for their attention and services. Attracting that talent to your organization is a challenge that must be met head-on in innovative ways. The key is selling potential employees on the benefits of working with you. This makes recruiting almost a marketing effort. And in truth, the best recruiting techniques have their roots in the most effective marketing tactics. This is where social media, branding, and your current employees serving as brand ambassadors comes into play. The 2025 workforce will include not just transient workers, but also gig workers. A more fluid workforce is a trend that's here to stay. If we want to retain employees, we have to be able to effectively manage a multi-generational workforce. Millennials and Gen Z want and expect authentic, values-based leadership with meaningful careers that provide the opportunity for learning, growth, empowerment, and achievement. 2, embed diversity, equity, and inclusion in the culture of the organization. According to O.C. Tanner's Global Culture Report, only 44% of employees say their company's diversity and inclusion efforts feel sincere. It seems many companies are more concerned about mitigating legal and reputational risks instead of truly making diversity and inclusion part of their culture. Diversity, equity, and inclusion focuses on creating an open, fair, and inclusive place for work. It touches everything from representation, leadership, to recruiting, pay, promotion, growth, and development opportunities, reward systems, to management and behavior. It is beneficial to build a workforce in which all members understand how the other members see the world. This can be facilitated via storytelling. Encourage team members to share their personal stories, which allows for better connection and empathy. So what is the end result you want to achieve from your diversity and inclusion strategy? What is the end result? Most leaders don't answer this correctly. It should be unity. Most importantly, we must seek unity rather than uniformity. At times, I have witnessed diverse groups that keep to themselves and exclude others. That is defeating the purpose. Get employees out of their comfort zones by moving them around in different teams. It's also important to recognize and reward those who make the effort to make others feel included. Leaders should spread unity over divisiveness for individuals to work together as a team. It doesn't mean we must dress alike, speak or look alike, but we value and respect each other's differences and are committed to working together for the overall success of the organization. One team, one goal. Strategy 3, reskilling and upskilling. Employers will have to teach employees the new skills that tomorrow's market will demand through reskilling and upskilling. Reskilling and upskilling will require more than just a new set of instructions. It will require a new mindset. Learning a new skill requires change. Significant change can produce significant fear. You will need to increase information flow. Start by analyzing the workforce to identify skill gaps. This will help you to determine what gaps, staffing, and skills exist between current and projected workforce needs. Consider how you will restructure your learning strategies to address a more distributed and hybrid workforce, and how you might accommodate those who respond best to in-person learning. Companies will need dedicated leadership to sustain this effort. For large organizations, this may include adding a new role to the leadership org. A chief skills officer, CSO, or a chief learning officer, CLO. Just as the role of chief technology officer, CTO, became common over the past 2 decades, the CSO or CLO, chief learning officer or chief skills officer role may become more common in the decade ahead as organizations need to retrain, redefine, and redeploy workers. And finally, form partnerships. You can't do it alone. Reskilling workers and preparing the workforce for the future will require help from external sources. Businesses may need to turn to outside partners with educational expertise or capability building programs. And 4, psychological safety. This is something so important, yet is highly underestimated. In one company I was consulting with, HR was discussing topics with management for their training program. I mentioned the keyword psychological safety during this meeting for improving the overall job and employee satisfaction. It wasn't accepted by management as something of worth and value. As a leader, you need people to speak up. Without this, you're at risk. You're at risk of failing to innovate, and you're also at risk of avoidable business failures. Furthermore, don't mistake silence for agreement. It's so natural to do that. When you don't hear people dissenting, you tend to think everybody's on board. That may not be the case. There are so many misconceptions about psychological safety. Let's start with what it's not. It's not a shield from accountability. Non-performing employees tend to invoke it as an excuse for poor performance, insisting that it means valuing people and building relationships. But it's not turning a blind eye to poor performance. What is psychological safety? This concept was first brought to prominence by Amy Edmondson. Psychological safety is about creating an environment where feedback is given candidly, mistakes are freely admitted, and people can learn from each other. Why don't employees speak up? What some reasons you might think that employees don't speak up? Are they afraid of being victimized? Are they afraid of your response if they actually speak up? The question is it safe to be yourself? What should a person in a psychologically safe team be able to do? Give and receive feedback, raise issues and concerns, disagree, ask for clarification, ask difficult questions, ask for help, offer solutions to problems, and admit errors. Consider what happened in a recent leadership program I was conducting. A manager proclaimed, "I don't think we have an issue with this at our company, but if you disagree, please enlighten me." Unsurprisingly, no one on the team responded. I launched an anonymous poll on a scale of 1 to 5, rate the level of psychological safety in your company. When a majority of the responses were 3, the manager responded, "Clearly, I need to be less assumptive." The first step in your workplace to measure psychological safety in your workplace is to use anonymous polls and questionnaires. You might first conduct a survey with a focus on the organization as a whole, then follow up with an additional survey that's team specific. Compare team specific results to the organizational benchmark to see if certain managers are better or worse at creating psychologically safe teams. Once you have an understanding of where you are, you can create a plan of action to improve. The benefits of psychological safety include better learning, innovation and adaptability, higher creativity levels, stronger morale, more efficient problem solving, increased employee engagement and job satisfaction, and higher productivity. And our final topic is well-being is a business mandate. Why is employee well-being so important? Investing in employee well-being can lead to increased resilience, better employee engagement, reduce absenteeism, and higher performance and productivity. In the end, employees want to feel heard, supported, and appreciated. And when they do, you will see the results in the bottom line. The pandemic has been a difficult time for many, coupled with the uncertainty around the future of jobs and the disruptions in everyday life, have caused anxiety to rise to unhealthy levels. A report from Gallup defines well-being along 5 elements that can help people achieve what they call holistic well-being. The 5 well-being elements are social, meaningful relationships, career, enjoying work, physical, energy to succeed, community, enjoying where you live, and financial, smart money management. How you structure your well-being program will make all the difference in whether or not it proves to be effective. Talking about well-being can be difficult. Many people don't want to speak about things like mental health or their physical fitness openly. So how do we engage employees around well-being? 1, build a deliberate sense of connection with everyone on your team. Building a connection with every employee takes time. Make the time. I often hear managers say, I don't have the time. It's important that we give time to this. We need to be frequently checking in with our employees. And I don't mean micromanagement. It's about, you can co-create an agenda template. It's easy for one-on-ones to turn into work status updates or meandering conversations. To make sure each one-on-one is a high impact conversation, agree to a template you'll use every week. Here are some of my favorite agenda points, especially for hybrid teams: wins and frustrations, MIT alignment check, what are the most important things to do this week, feedback exchange, show and tell, show a piece of your work you're proud of. One of the setbacks of remote work is that people can feel isolated and ignored. And unless you have regular check-ins with your remote staff, it can be difficult to spot when an employee is struggling. I had asked you to write briefly, what is your job? So I'm going to look in the chat right now, and I'm going to see what many of you have said in the chats. Leadership by teaching. I'm looking. Could you just write for me, what is your job? Senior HR manager. Thank you. Leader. What do you do? Engagement lead. Right, thank you for your responses. Usually HR GM to provide, wow, X. Thank you all. Usually when I ask this question, people will put their roles and responsibility, but I want us to rethink our jobs. There's a lot of employees in many organizations who are disengaged. Your job is to connect the dots. It's your employee's job to go and do and get the actual task done. Your job is to connect the dots, to help people connect the actual task that they do with a larger sense of purpose. modern leadership starts with purpose. We all want meaningful work, to know we're doing something significant and our contribution to the organization is valued. Remember, it's your employee's job to go out and make the sales calls to achieve sales targets. And it's your job as a leader to empower, nurture, and ensure your employees can do the best possible job. With a new normal in the workplace, organizations must also consider the culture, changing the culture. And people don't leave companies, they leave toxic work cultures, and HR need to be addressing toxic workplace behaviors as gossiping, social cliques, favoritism, and office politics. If we want to retain employees and we want to make them feel valued and appreciated, we need to be constantly looking at how to create a positive workplace culture. Also offering a modern benefits package. It takes revamping policies to ensure we include flexible work, parental leave, caregiver leave, financial, and it takes looking at everything and what do employees want and how we can put a benefit and have benefits that will apply to their needs. I'm seeing one company I was consulting with announce all employees can receive a $300 bonus each week they take a full vacation for the next year. So it's just about being creative, and expanding mental health access beyond the employee assistance program is crucial. Because interpersonal relationships provide an important source of social support, employers might create opportunities inside and outside work for employees to interact. So we need to be creating more opportunities. Most of us keep in touch with our friends through chat apps, FaceTime, and social media. We need to open up similar avenues for employees, such as virtual coffee, socials, happy hours over Zoom between employees across locations and teams. It's about making it more fun, not just it has to be about work, but what we can do to engage people and make a community. And lastly, inspirational leadership. People are looking for inspiration that speaks to their need. Challenging times like these that we are facing are the most difficult in which to lead, especially as the workplace changes, the economy struggles, COVID-19 ravages on, and employees live in fear and uncertainty of their jobs. The need for inspirational leadership is at an all-time high. The ability to inspire the organization is an undeveloped skill among leaders today. People want certainty during a time in history when the world is disillusioned by artificial relationships and the constant reminders that things aren't getting much better. In one word, they want hope. I call hope the cornerstone of leadership. Why? Because leadership is about having a vision for the future, and hope allows people to look forward with anticipation and expectation towards that future state. Hope is the one thing that lifts the human spirit and keeps us going in spite of the difficulties that we face. It keeps us believing and expecting that out of today's darkness, tomorrow's light will shine more brightly. Without hope, society would collapse as we would all live our lives in despair. None of us would be attending this event if we didn't have hope. Even though how small it may be, it still carries us through. Leadership is about instilling and managing hope with real opportunities and goals that people believe they can achieve. The worst punishment is to deprive someone of hope. As Napoleon Bonaparte stated, a leader is a dealer in hope. Are our leaders dealers in hope? I was speaking to a CEO who didn't get the value of hope. And he said, so you are referring to, we are hoping to achieve targets. We are hoping to increase employee retention. Please don't misunderstand. Hope is not a good way to manage a business. Budgets, strategic plans, targets, and forecasts are all tools that leaders use to manage a business on a day-to-day basis. But hope is needed to lead people. Never underestimate the value of hope. Small trees, even though sheltered or hidden away, will always reach for the light. Help your people to reach for the light. Be a lighthouse to the ships lost at sea in these dark times. People are depending on you in difficult times to stay and anchor the ship in a safe harbor. Use your platform to encourage and uplift others. Sometimes you may never know the impact you have made on others' lives. So never underestimate the depth of your influence. Always remember, there's nothing that can replace the human touch. Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Some very wise and sound words there, and a very tough act to follow, but I will do my best. So as we move on from that, I'm going to talk a little bit about CoachHub and what we do from an employee wellbeing perspective. So Bridget has touched on some of the key strategies and pillars that we can use to assist in employee wellbeing, particularly around creating that environment of psychological safety as well. But here at CoachHub, we have a solution where we leverage coaching to assist both in creating that environment of psychological safety, but also in enabling employees to be the best they can be more resilient, and foster that engagement and well-being for the employees. So just some statistics here. 96% of companies globally have made changes to their HR policies and increased employee resources, but only 1 in 6 employees report feeling supported. And this kind of aligns with what Bridget touched on with the diversity and inclusion, equity and inclusion side of things. There's a real misalignment between what the companies are investing in and what the actual employees are feeling and getting as a result of that investment. Leaders reported that the primary value area of focus for coaching at the moment is around well-being. So CoachHub has listened to that. Around 1 employee out of 2 doesn't want to share mental health issues with their manager. And this comes down to that environment of psychological safety. There's that fear or perception that if they raise these issues with their manager, it could have an adverse impact on their career progression and could be perceived as them not being capable to do their particular tasks. So you can act both through what Bridget's touched on around creating that environment of psychological safety, but also by providing a coach who can assist in creating someone that they've got that psychological safety with. They can discuss their real challenges, and it can help the individual become a lot more resilient and a lot more capable at handling any of the sorts of challenges they might be facing, such as what COVID has thrown up today. So really enhancing their positive states, traits and behaviours and focusing on what they can do really well and exceeding. So how CoachHub Wellbeing works is the coaching facilitates personal and professional growth, and doing that through enhancing the wellbeing by working on what it is that individual actually needs to tackle. And it's going to be different individual to individual. And this is why coaching is so powerful, because it really focuses on what that individual needs to do to improve, as opposed to creating a training program that says, right, everyone needs to go away and do this. That might cover off 30, 40, 50% of people, but everyone is slightly different. Everyone has their own challenges that they need to address. And the only way you're going to be able to assist everyone is by treating them as individuals and addressing their own challenges and their own needs. So what is coaching? It's around a goal and solution-oriented approach. So working on achieving targets for that individual, achieving things that are relevant for them and working with them to achieve those goals, but doing so in a self-regulated way. So it's really up to the individual, both to set the goals and then to do the activities and tasks needed to achieve those goals. So the coach is there to be creative, be thought-provoking, work with that individual to draw out the best of them, but it's really about helping people to help themselves. What isn't it? It's not mentoring. So it's not about someone at a higher level than that individual sharing their experience and telling people, this is how I did it, so perhaps you could use that. It's not consulting. It's not about giving advice. I think you should do this. It's not training. There's not a whole heap of content and taking people through learning pathways. And it's certainly not psychotherapy. So it's not designed to treat mental disorders. Self-regulated improvement, helping the individual to be the best they can be through thought-provoking and challenging questions. Some statistics around how coaching has assisted improving the lives of coachees that have gone through our programs. 91% reported they found meaning again in their careers, in their lives. 48% improved self-awareness and stress reduction. 70% improved team spirit, and 60% increase in engagement in workforces. Some of the most chosen focus areas that coachees selected throughout the pandemic using CoachHub: number one, time management. Not surprising, moving into a remote working environment. Communication as well was up there. But it's interesting to see both resilience and emotional regulation were top 5. Obviously key things and key new challenges that are a lot more difficult to do when you're working remotely. When we're talking about individual outcomes of coaching, we're talking about goal-related self-regulation, and through that, we're driving improvements in performance for the individual, improvements in their work-related attitudes, so how they're working with their colleagues, and through those, drive better well-being and better stress management for the individual. As the individuals, they can therefore face their life pressures a lot more effectively, and having that person there to talk through their life challenges and what it is that they're facing, how they can actually develop a positive mindset, focus less on the negatives, and build that resilience in how they're operating within the workforce. How does CoachHub do that? So we've got a bank of resources and skills that enhance personal resilience. So our coaches that coach on the Wellbeing platform, they're all registered psychologists. They're all trained in how to get the best out of the individuals, how to really focus on the positives, how to really help them become more resilient, ask the right questions to get to the challenges and enable that individual to tackle those challenges more effectively. In terms of the coaching topics, we use the PERMA model of wellbeing. So start by talking about what are the positive emotions, what makes that individual get excited and tick and helps them to be optimistic. Through that, we then look at how can we improve their engagement with their workplace, with those individuals around them, generate those positive relationships that can help them be better rather than the negative relationships that might actually be drawing them down. And then give them that meaning back, both meaning in what they're doing as their career, but also meaning in how they're getting by on a day-to-day. What are they doing that really helps them achieve that meaning, and through that, accomplishment. So get to the goals they want to get to in their workplace, get to the goals that they want to get to as an individual. In terms of behaviours, we have a framework that we coach against. I'm not going to go through this in any detail today. Tamina might touch on some of this in her talk about what she's doing at MEGT. But you can see here some of these really align closely with what Bridget was talking about in terms of the skills required of leaders moving into the future. Some of the use cases around CoachHub Wellbeing. So it's really around dealing with loneliness, increasing that sense of belonging, staying productive and building that resilience. But you'll see down the bottom there, psychological safety. So really driving to achieve psychological safety, that environment where you're comfortable in opening up and addressing what needs to be addressed. We did some work with a company called PayFit, specifically around their well-being. You can see a quote here from Maud, who is their global culture manager, but they've got 750 employees across 6 countries and we're retail finance. So it was a real shift in their workforce throughout COVID. They moved to 100% teleworking model from the traditional teleworking model. Some of the objectives, they had a lot of absenteeism. There was a lack of commitment, a lot of sick leave, a lot of burnt out workers, presenteeism issues. So there's a lot of challenges that needed to be faced. And they offered this across their entire organisation. It ended up with 50 participants taking it up on a 6-month program. All right. That's enough about CoachHub from my perspective. Let's hear about it from one of our customers. So over to you, Tamina. I will progress with the slides as requested.
Great, thank you, Rob, and thanks for the opportunity to share a little bit about our coaching journey at MEGT. We're about 3 months in, so it's still early days, but we've already seen some really great results. Some of those I'm happy to share, and also from my personal experience, having been one of the coachees on our pilot program. And there are 2 key things I think that have stood out to me, not only in my personal experience, but the feedback we've been receiving, and also the reason why we chose to go down a coaching path in the first place. And it echoes very closely, I think, some of the things that Bridget has shared with us today, the flexible and personal approach to every individual in the workforce. More and more, these 2 things are becoming increasingly important. And part of the reason that we went with a digital platform like CoachHub is it really allows both of those things. So Rob, if we can continue on with the slide. A little bit about MEGT. We are Australia's largest apprenticeship network provider. We also work as a group training organisation and in employment services. What that means is we have 3 very different operational branches of the business underpinned by a corporate shared service. That means lots of different skill sets across the organisation, very different experiences, and also very different needs. On top of that, we have around 600 staff that sit in 50 different offices. And some of these offices are quite small in rural locations. So what I would probably say is part of the motivation as well for somewhere like CoachHub is we're not just looking at COVID as a reason for working remotely. We are a dispersed organisation anyway. So as Bridget said, that one size fits all approach, not only from a location perspective, but also an individual perspective, just doesn't work anymore. So this is some of the driving forces behind it. Some of our key opportunities that we saw as well in this space was being able to develop our leadership skills across the organisation, as well as a focus on our personal well-being. And we'll move on. So we've been running a pilot program, which has so far consisted of 6 participants. We deliberately chose 1 participant from each of our different business units to make sure that we'd be able to find the right coaches for, as I said, very different skill sets and different needs across our organisation. And closely connected with something that both Bridget and Rob shared is that importance of interpersonal connection through all of this. We held a couple of different kickoff sessions to get the team together, some of whom had never met or don't work closely together day by day, so that we could foster this as a joint journey. We've had some group chats along the way, and that was really great to see people, especially at the beginning, as they were being matched with their coaches, sharing their experience in some of their first sessions. And I think doing that collectively has really helped us also be able to share some of the things that we've learned along the way. As I said, we're 3 months in, but we've already got 2 new cohorts starting, including our executive team, which have just kicked off this week. Some of our early results, as you can see on the screen, generally very, very high scoring. So far, our participants have said that they do feel respected by their coach, that they're agreeing on goals that they're working towards, and really importantly, that they feel the coaching is actually helping them achieve the changes that they want. A little bit different to Rob's global list of trends. The key thing that we saw coming out of our pilot program, out of 6 participants, 4 mentioned motivation being the most important thing that they wanted to focus on. And I'm not surprised by that, given that the majority of our participants are currently sitting in Melbourne. And if you weren't aware, Melbourne now gets to boast that we've been the most locked down city in the world as a result of COVID. So there's definitely been some really unique challenges, I think, for our staff that have come along with that, particularly those who are Victorian and Melbourne based. That personal motivation has been a really important journey, I think, for quite a few of us, myself included, in the pilot program. But I think it goes beyond just the impacts of something like COVID. I think it really goes to show the benefits of coaching generally. And this is something that I've come to experience and appreciate on that personal level. The ability to talk with someone who really aims to understand you, what it is that drives you, what it is that motivates you as an individual. And it was really great to hear that echoed in what Bridget shared with us today around the importance of understanding what is it that every individual in the organisation needs. It's something I'm very passionate about personally. My role is staff engagement lead. So the whole purpose of engagement is to try and understand that motivation on a macro and a micro level within the organisation. And I've just pulled out a quote from a global workforce study from 2012, where really our motivation needs to be shifting from that traditional focus on getting more out of people to investing in their core needs, so that they feel freed, fueled, and inspired to bring their whole selves to work. And I think this is what differentiates coaching from other learning solutions. It's not really about the knowledge, skills, or behaviors you're learning. It's about understanding you as a holistic person, and then hopefully giving you the tools to articulate what it is that you need back to the business, and also having that better understanding of self. And if we move to the next slide, I'll share a little anecdote about my personal experience and what I've learned through this process. I had one session with a coach, and immediately I thought of this very famous image. You might have seen it before, with the quote from Albert Einstein: "Everybody is a genius, but if you judged a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its entire life believing it is stupid." And the reason that this came to mind is my coach and I were having a discussion around some frustrations I felt with being unable to utilize the same tools and techniques and resilience techniques that I've built up in my life with the current situation. And given the long extended Melbourne lockdown, things have just become so much more challenging. And my coach challenged me to think whether I was just transplanting some of those things directly that I used to do into a completely different environment. And I thought of this image because I think suddenly I felt like the goldfish trying to climb the tree. I realized that I'd been taken out of my pond, put in a forest, but was still trying to swim. So those have been some really great conversations that are coming out of that coaching space. And I think, again, demonstrates some of the benefits of having that person who really takes the time to get to know you. And from a business perspective, the fact that we are investing in those people. One of our values at MEGT is growth. Investing in people is what grows our business. So being able to demonstrate that clearly, it's not just a professional development, but also a personal one. And that's been reflected in some of the comments from our participants. I won't read them out there, but we've had 2 staff members, for example, write down some of the testimonials for us. And what's interesting to see is the theme is self-reflection and self-development come through very clearly in a way that probably wouldn't be achieved if we were going for, as Bridget said earlier, that one-size-fits-all approach. So it's been a really positive experience, and I think we've already received some positive feedback, and we're looking forward to seeing how the program continues.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tamina. All right, we've got an opportunity now. I'll just stop sharing my screen. If people have got questions, anyone has any questions on anything that either Bridget, Tamina, or myself have covered off today, please drop them in the Q&A or chat sessions. All right. Okay, I've actually got a question here for you, Bridget. It's around the culture and how do you sort of maintain that culture? Do you think corporate cultures and communities will erode over time without physical interaction?
I think it is dependent on the actions we take. Planning and execution are paramount if we want a vibrant culture. Great corporate cultures align beliefs and behaviors. If you state certain values as part of your culture, you'd better walk the talk. The wider the gap, the weaker the culture and the more isolated people will feel. Building a strong culture takes more than just casual interactions. It's about people, storytelling, rituals. You need to foster a purpose-driven organization. Give employees the tools they need to build and share their culture. And this can be a dedicated channel in your communication platform, a structured meeting, or gaming session on company time. People should feel a sense of belonging and that they have a voice regardless of where they are located. And it's always important to get people together. At some point, we still crave that interaction, or maybe rubbing elbows at the copy machine, and because, I put out a survey and the result of it was basically a lot of people still want that interaction. Yes, it's a hybrid system they want, but they miss interaction with their peers. Yes, this is a new norm that we have, but leaders can still foster an environment where people can communicate, and things like FaceTime, and even before a call, you have the little chatter and the small talk, and just the little things that build a culture. It's about how people interact with each other. I like this Richard Branson quote that states, train people well enough that they can leave, treat them well enough so they don't want to. So it all comes down to how we treat people, how we interact with them. Do they feel appreciated, valued? It's by the behaviors we show. So I think that it can be strengthened, but it's the effort that we put into building a culture. It's the effort that we put on decisions that we make it will show in the end the culture that we are building.
Fantastic. Thanks for that. Now, I'm just conscious of time. I haven't seen any other questions come through, so we might actually call it time now. So I'd like to say, certainly on behalf of CoachHub and all the attendees today, thank you very much for your time, Bridget and Tamina. It's been fantastic seeing your insights and sharing your stories. So thank you so much. And yeah, look forward to what the future can bring.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
later.
you, Rob.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye.